Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today will be a bit of a different episode because we can't actually analyze Meta. Well, we could analyze the fundamentals and all that and the financials and the numbers and the yada yada. But unfortunately none of those really matter because when you're buying Meta, you're not just buying the company, you're also buying this guy. Yeah, that guy. Because there is no Meta without Mark Zuckerberg. You can spin the story as much as you want, but he has majority voting power, which means he is basically the one-man leader of this company. This just means that even if Meta had a 99% profit and made $1 trillion a quarter, if Mark wanted to spend it all on the metaverse, he could, and nobody can stop him. Unfortunately, that's just how it works out sometimes. When the company went public, he got exclusive founder rights. In that agreement, he got majority voting power. And because companies are a rich democracy, he has majority control and majority say, and he makes all the choices. This means that even if the board of directors wanted to, they could not fire him. They cannot remove him from his job, nor can they make any decision without him. Well, at least unless he does something illegal, but that's a whole different situation. So at the end of the day, if you're a shareholder of Meta, you are a shareholder in Mark Zuckerberg's ability as a CEO and the vision he has for the company. Which, as we all know right now, is deeply invested in the metaverse, for better and worse, mostly worse. Even when Mark's not trying to be, everything he does seems dystopian nightmare fuel. To be honest, I don't even think he's a bad guy. He's very passionate and extremely competitive, but as a result of that, he's not good at communication, nor is he good at image and perception. If that wasn't made clear by the alien lizard Illuminati memes. The best comparison for Mark Zuckerberg would have been Bill Gates in the 80s and 90s. He had a similar reputation. He had a lot of control over his company and was largely seen as an arrogant, overly competitive prick, who was also bad at communication. But then he gave it all up, spent the last 30 years donating money to everybody, and everybody kind of forgot about it. So Mr. Zuckerberg, if you were to ever take a lesson, I would take that one. You have a long life left ahead of you, and you can do a lot of reputational rebuilding in that time. But we all know that's not likely to happen. At least not anytime soon. Because at the end of the day, there's not a lot to say about the fundamentals of Meta. The company is extremely profitable, because harvesting and selling everybody's data and then selling them extremely specific ads actually isn't all that capital intensive. Not that the people at Meta don't work hard, it's just the nature of the business they're in. If you can sell targeted ads at scale, it's a very profitable business. Google made that very clear. And the competition doesn't seem to be taking away from Meta all that much. Even with the rapid rise of TikTok, which many predicted would be the downfall of YouTube, Meta, and Twitter. But in the end, none of that has really happened so far. The thing with social media is that most of the ones who jump out and come out of nowhere are usually carving out their own special niche. YouTube is long format videos, TikTok is short format, Instagram is pictures, Twitter is for instant virality, Snapchat is for temporary photos and images. And Facebook is like the lifestyle homepage, bringing them all together. But that's only if you take a look at user engagement. On the advertisement front, it's completely different. Twitter and Snapchat have hardly ever been able to capture a large market share. When it comes to advertisements, YouTube, Meta, and Instagram, which is Meta again, are the only platforms that are actually useful for advertisers. So you could say when it comes to social media marketing and advertisements, Meta is still the undisputed king. Unfortunately, that pulls us back into where we started though. The biggest risk with Meta is not actually TikTok. It is once again Mark Zuckerberg. After a year of dumping billions of dollars into the metaverse, shareholders have responded with their opinions through an absolutely collapsing share price. And oh boy did that share price collapse. From Meta's recent all-time high of nearly $1 trillion, now Meta sits at a measly $300 billion. Still quite a hefty valuation, but down 70% this year, losing $700 billion in valuation. That's going to make it real hard for Mark to get into the space race with his fellow billionaires. Because if he can't create his own universe, he might as well go conquer a planet. The dumbest part about this too is actually the business decision. Mark knows Meta and Facebook have a horrible reputation, not to mention his own personal reputation issues. If he had just left Facebook alone, it would probably still at least have a $500 or $600 billion valuation. And he could have used his ownership stake in that to start a new company. One with a clean reputational start, and hopefully to minimize his involvement so the trust of the company could thrive. Nobody wants a universe created by Facebook and dictated by Mark. The fact that he was so blind to that blatant reality just shows a lack of his situational awareness. For example, Jeff Bezos knew there was no point of merging the Washington Post with Amazon, so he kept it as its own independent business owned by him. He did the same for Blue Origin. When you have an idea for another company with no synergy with the prior, it's usually best to just start a new one. Elon has a clear separation between SpaceX, Tesla, and Neuralink, and a few of his other projects, not to mention the newly integrated Twitter to the portfolio. But he never combined and merged these companies because they're fundamentally different. And yes, SpaceX and Tesla have overlapped with some engineering research on some grounds, but for the most part they've remained separate. Bill Gates has taken a more relaxed approach than any of the others. Over the years, he has helped fund numerous startups, from nuclear research and battery technologies all the way to vaccines, and a dozen others in between. Not necessarily leading or dictating the company's actions, but simply investing into things that he thought would help the world. Mark Zuckerberg could have taken any of these approaches. He could have used his vast wealth to make a clear separation with his new project. Instead, because of his pride and arrogance, he took his entire company down with him, dragging shareholders and employees down along the way. Because Facebook has no synergy with the metaverse. Facebook is a company built around data harvesting and targeted advertisements. The nature of the business is deceptive, dishonest, and invasive. To create a metaverse, you need so much more than engineering prowess. You need trust and faith in the system. You need easy to use and compatible hardware. And above all, you need an ecosystem that promotes content creation. Facebook had none of these. Literally none. And I don't mean to disrespect the employees at Meta. They are brilliant people capable of a lot more than this. And the newest VR gear is technologically impressive. It's not enough to make people actually want to wear it for more than a few minutes, but it is impressive nonetheless. So what does this all actually mean for Meta? What does this mean for shareholders? If you own shares, should you bail out? If you don't own shares, should you buy in? Is this the new appropriate valuation for Meta? Or should you be buying the dip? All of this is advice that I'm not going to give, because it really just depends on your situation and your risk tolerance. But I will let you know what I personally did. I was fortunate enough to not own Meta before its collapse, but I do own some now. After a 70% drop, I thought it was too good of a deal to miss out on. But I want to make this absolutely crystal clear. This is not an investment that I made. I made a risky bet. My purchase of Meta shares is an absolute gamble. Because like I said earlier, Mark Zuckerberg controls the show. He has the majority voting power he needs to make any decision he wants. And as a shareholder, I have no choice but to follow his lead essentially. Therefore, my decision to buy Meta shares is solely on the hope and prayer that Mark Zuckerberg gives up. I am gambling that Meta and Mark will give up on the metaverse. And with the recent layoffs of 11,000, I might be right, but I could still be wrong. Because it's not a logical decision. There's no evidence that I can really make that could back this up. And if you are thinking about investing in Meta, as of right now, you have to be making the same gamble. As of right now, Meta shareholders have 3 options. Stay clear of it, invest in it hoping that the metaverse will work out, or lastly, invest in it hoping that Mark gives up. I'm banking on the fact that Mark Zuckerberg will give up eventually. I think he'll eventually come to the realization that Meta is not the company for this task, which really sucks because he made the name change already. That being said, they could use the name change to their advantage. Facebook had a horrible reputation. Maybe a new brand and name was needed anyway. But with the recent layoffs of 11,000 people, I think this is the direction they're going to be going in anyway. Even Mark can only spearhead a project that's not gaining any ground for so long. The main problem now is that nobody actually calls the company Meta without laughing underneath their breath. It's unfortunate after this long, Mark still hasn't decided to step away. Meta is a really sound company to invest in overall. The profit margins are good. It is exposed to some risk involving privacy concerns, but it still has pretty much a monopoly on social media advertising, only sharing the limelight with YouTube and TikTok, as Twitter and Snapchat are hardly in the running. And while I do find its practice of copying every new feature that comes out kind of annoying, I can't lie that the results are pretty meaningful. Every time a new competitor brings out a new format, Meta is usually pretty quick to copy and paste onto either Facebook or Instagram. And while it's almost never as good as the original, it's usually good enough for most people to use, especially with people already having accounts and already being familiar with the platform. So Meta is still a social media giant. It has robust profit margins even after Apple's privacy hit. Unfortunately, it is always wrapped up in some kind of scandal, and people generally hate the company because it's always stalking you. But while people do complain about it out loud, you don't see too many efforts to actually avoid the platforms. But those are just my thoughts on Meta and Mark Zuckerberg. What do you think of Meta? Is it a great company with a terrible CEO? Does Mark have the right idea about the metaverse? Do you believe they'll bail out of the project before wasting all their cash? Or make a credible breakthrough and pioneer a new market? Will Meta actually ever innovate again? Maybe even actually contribute something new to the social media space that they didn't copy and paste? Let me know what you all think in the comments below. And as always, if you like the content we make, be sure to like, subscribe, and keep watching Interesting Investments.